Hello, I'm back in my Briar Ridge Speedway toy box with Sorcerer's Apprentice Mickey today for a new episode of Toy Box Tutorials. And some of you are probably wondering, what is going on? It's Monday, and this isn't my normal series that airs on Mondays and Wednesdays. Plus, Toy Box Tutorials is currently paused while I'm doing the new Toy Box Racing series on Fridays. So what is happening? Why am I not doing my next Disneyland episode today? I'm sure that's what some of you are thinking. Well, the next few rides we're going to build in my Disneyland series all involve the vehicle summoner, and it occurred to me that I haven't done a proper tutorial on that yet, so I decided to take a short break from my Disneyland series to do this tutorial, and that way I can just focus on the rides themselves without having to teach you all about this toy at the same time. Now you'll find the vehicle summoner under the gameplay toys drawer, and I'm going to drop one down right next to these two buttons I placed down earlier, and I'm placing it with the Disney Infinity logo in the readable direction. Now you can just place vehicles and mounts directly into your toy box using the editor, so why would you use this toy? Well, there's several reasons why you might want to use it. First, placing a vehicle or a mount in your toy box uses up a large chunk of memory, so it can sometimes be a good idea to wait and spawn a vehicle until you need it. It also lets you easily remove a summoned vehicle once you're done with it, so you can reclaim that memory. And the nice thing about this toy is that your players won't need to use the editor to do either of those things. Second, it allows you to add vehicles and mounts from hexagonal power discs without needing to place the disc on the base. With the vehicle summoner, you only need to use the power disc one time to set it up, and after that you won't need to drag the power disc out of storage every time you want to use it. And third, you can only place 3 hexagonal power discs on the base at a time, so if you want to use more power disc vehicles or mounts than that, you can only do it with the vehicle summoner. So those are some of the main reasons why you would want to use this toy. Now, to begin with, let's just go ahead and start with the basics. So I'm going to hook up this first button with a new logic connection when pressed to our vehicle summoner. And we'll look at the behaviors first, and you'll notice there's a bunch of categories here based on playset. So if we select one, you'll see the ground vehicles and the flying vehicles from that playset are all in the same list. And there's a random option at the bottom that will randomly choose one of these. And all of the playsets are represented here from 2.0 and 3.0. Plus you have this toy box category, which is just a hodgepodge of all the vehicles that are available in the toy box. And a random option at the bottom. You can also use this to spawn mounts. So all of the mounts are available here. There's a random option here, so you can randomly select any vehicle from any of these categories, or a mount. And finally, a remove all option, and this will remove all of the vehicles and mounts that this toy was used to generate. So I'm going to hook up under Toy Box. Let's do the Gravity Falls golf cart. And then we'll use the second button over here to remove it. So when pressed, we'll come over to the vehicle summoner, go down to the bottom to the remove all. Now notice which way that logo is facing. Up is facing in that direction, away from us. So if I come out here and push the button, notice which way the golf cart is facing. It is facing towards me and not in that direction, which is kind of what I would have expected. So that's important to note. And then we'll use this to remove that toy. So that's the basic way to use it. There's a lot more this toy can do though, so let's keep going. And we'll start with the logic menu on this. You'll notice there's a new locator connection. So we can connect up to this locator, and notice which way that that blue dot is facing, because that's the direction the vehicle will face when it's generated. So now we'll come over here and push the button. So instead of appearing on top of the vehicle summoner, it will appear over at that locator. And that's useful because that way you can hide this ugly vehicle summoner if you're using it in a medieval setting like this where it just doesn't make sense. Let's go ahead and remove that. And now that we're done with that locator, let's go ahead and delete that link to it. You'll also notice there's a new path connection here. And so you can connect this up to a path. So let's go ahead and create one really quick. And I'm just going to drop one here. We'll put down a number of points that'll kind of go in an oval shape. Like that. And then we'll come over and edit the properties and close the loop. And to keep this simple, I'm going to leave the auto start objects when connected flag on, because I'm not really doing a tutorial on the path creator here. I want to focus on the vehicle summoner. And let's go ahead and just tweak this a little bit, just to make that path a little more round. All right, so let's go ahead and connect up the vehicle summoner to that. You do that with a new path connection. And you connect up like that. And so now when we generate our golf cart, it'll connect to the path and start following the path. And you'll notice as it moves, it's not orienting along the path. It's just sliding around the path. That's the default behavior. And to fix that, there are some properties on this toy. So let's look at those next. So under the properties, under generated vehicle options, there's 3 options here, and they all have to do with a path that's connected. So if your vehicle summoner is not connected to any path, these options will do nothing. But we have orient along the path, and that does what we want. Have it follow along the path the way you would expect. There's an option to use driving physics or not, and by default this is off. And what that means is when it's off, it's going to follow the path precisely. If you turn this on, then it's going to use the driving physics. So if you have a very tight turn on your path, depending on the velocity that you have the vehicle moving along the path, it may not be able to take that turn with the driving physics on. And so it'll actually go off of the path and try to make that turn as best it can. So I usually leave this off unless there's a really good reason not to. And then movement style by default is loop, and this is what you'd expect from the other toys that you connect to a path. You have all the different options available for that. And so now if we come out here and generate our golf cart, it'll drive along the path the way you would expect. And you can see it's actually turning and going along that path. So that makes a lot more sense. Now before we leave our path discussion, I just want to point out that if you use the vehicle summoner to generate a mount, as I've mentioned in my earlier lesson on mounts, you cannot connect a mount to a path. And so if you use this to connect a mount, let's go ahead and just do that. So let's edit our connection here to the vehicle summoner. And rather than going to the toy box, let's go down to mounts and generate the police horse. And since we cannot connect mounts to a path, what's going to happen is the mount will just appear on top of the vehicle summoner, and he'll just stand there because he can't do anything with that path. All right. Now, one more thing. Well, let's go ahead first before I get into the power discs. Let's look at the logic connections on this, and then we'll finish with this menu. So these are the trigger signals that this toy will broadcast, and there are 7 of them. There's 3 under here, and then a category of generated vehicle options. The first one is generated, and this is what you would expect. As soon as this toy generates a vehicle, it will broadcast this signal. And again, you can hook that up to other toys so that they know when a vehicle has been generated. This one will be broadcast when a generated vehicle or mount has been defeated. So if you drove it off the edge of the world, for example, and it fell to its death when the toy was removed, this is the trigger signal that would be broadcast. And this one is broadcast when all of the vehicles that this toy generates are removed. And that would happen when I push that other second button that we hooked up earlier. And then you have generated vehicle options. And this is here because you cannot connect logic connections to a vehicle that is generated by this toy directly. And so if you want to know when the player interacts with that vehicle, you can do that under here. And so you can make a logic connection from here for a vehicle. And there's 4 of them. We haven't talked about vehicles yet, but these are the 4 trigger signals that a vehicle would broadcast. So when a player enters it, exits it, when it drives over a boost pad, or when a trick is completed. And this would happen if you use this toy to generate multiple vehicles. These would be broadcast whenever the player interacts that way with any of those vehicles. And so those are the trigger signals that this toy broadcasts. Now the last thing that we want to look at are power discs. So if we use a vehicle or a mount power disc with this toy, how would that work? Well, let me put down my power disc for Cruella de Vil's car. And that drops her vehicle here. And now let's come over to our button. And if we edit our logic connection to that, when pressed, you'll notice there's a new category here that wasn't here before, and it's hexagonal power discs. And if I select that, Cruella de Vil's car is listed under here. And so I can select that. And let's go ahead and remove the logic connection to the path, because I don't really want that at this point. And so now when we push the button, that toy generated her vehicle. So let's go ahead and remove that. And I'm going to take the power disc off the base. So the power disc is no longer on the base. And now if I come and push the button, it still puts her car there. And so this is really helpful, as I mentioned earlier, so that you can use this to generate a power disc vehicle, or multiple vehicles if you want. And I don't have to have the power disc on the base. So I just need it to set this up the first time, and then I can leave that power disc in storage. And so that is really, really helpful. I like that a lot. And of course, we can drive this off of the pad, push the button, and we get another one. So we can get multiple vehicles, as many as we want. And that can be really helpful. And then of course we push this button and they all disappear. So I like that a lot. And again, that works for mounts on a power disc as well. So if you have Belle's horse or Odin's horse or any of those, you can use those with this toy as well. And I believe that is everything that you need to know about the vehicle summoner. So I hope this tutorial was helpful for you. Next time, I'll go back to my Disneyland series and we'll build the first ride that uses this toy. Before you leave, don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done that, so you don't miss my next video. That's all for me today. I'll see you next time.